Soul Master's cultivation is an extremely crucial process before the age of 20. It can be said that the achievements before the age of 20 determine future accomplishments. The 30th rank is a threshold of great significance. If you can cross this threshold before 20, then your future prospects will be limitless. If you cannot cross it by 20, then you may never be able to leap over it. Youth is an advantage, and youth holds potential. Therefore, you must not waste even a single minute now. Your first and second soul rings. The teacher can still assist you, but when you need to obtain the third soul ring, the teacher may be powerless, and then you'll have to rely on yourself. Soul power cultivation cannot be rushed. It can only be increased by meditation to operate one's own soul power. Although you have the advantage of congenital full soul power, you must not slack off. Otherwise, you don't deserve to be my disciple. Roro. Just then, the mutant martial soul, Luo Sanpao, suddenly made a noise. The martial soul and its host are one, and the teacher immediately sensed something was amiss, leaping up and looking in a certain direction. By now, the sky had completely darkened and dimly, over 10 ghostly green dots were approaching their direction. It's the spectral wolves. The teacher's voice was somewhat solemn but not panicked. Sand, don't move from here. Luo Sanpao continuously made threatening noises, seemingly intimidating those approaching entities. The teacher didn't notice, but Tang San, by his side, had a layer of purple intent flash in his eyes, making things in the darkness clearer to him. There were a total of 6 wolf-shaped soul beasts, each about 1.6 meters long, presenting a steel-gray body with those ghostly green lights being their eyes. At this moment, they were slowly approaching Luo Sanpao's direction. Luo Sanpao's breath seemed to make them somewhat uneasy. As they approached, they maintained a semicircular formation. The teacher snorted, "A group of level 10 little wolves dare to harass me. Sanpao." Luo Sanpao let out a low growl, and with a whistling sound like a hurricane, it began to inhale rapidly. Its originally chubby belly expanded at an alarming rate, looking like a gradually enlarging ball. The teacher waved his hand, and a yellow halo flew out from him, wrapping around Luo Sanpao's body. He sternly shouted, "Thunderous roar of the fart, Sanpao." Luo Sanpao's bright blue eyes suddenly lit up, and the yellow halo surrounding its body seemed to turn into a light curtain. Its round body suddenly bounced up, astonishingly rising to a height of 5 meters in the air. Its figure turned in the air, and with a thunderous roar, it erupted like thunder. The teacher had somehow acquired 2 masks at some point, giving one to Tang San immediately and wearing the other himself. Tang San instinctively put on the mask, but his eyes remained fixed on Luo Sanpao's actions. Accompanied by that thunderous sound, a yellow light shield suddenly released, covering all 6 spectral wolves under it like a tsunami, seemingly ready to dissipate at any moment. The bodies of the 6 spectral wolves under Luo Sanpao's attack were thrown up like sacks, directly smashing more than 10 meters away. 2 of the spectral wolves hit their waists on a tree trunk, emitting cries of pain but unable to get up. The other spectral wolves rolled on the ground, and Tang San, with the clarity of his purple demon eyes, saw blood flowing from their mouths and noses, indicating how powerful the shockwave was earlier. Along with a series of whining sounds, except for the 2 spectral wolves lying unable to move on the ground, the others quickly fled. Even at this moment, the teacher didn't forget to teach Tang San, wolves and dogs have similar body structures, known as having a copper head, iron bones, and a tofu waist. Their waist is the most vulnerable part of their bodies. As he spoke, the teacher stepped forward, a short knife appearing in his hand at some point, passing over the necks of the 2 immobilized spectral wolves, then sprinkling some realgar powder on their bodies to conceal the smell of blood. "Look, the soul rings are about to appear." Reminded by the teacher, Tang San noticed that with the death of the two 10-year spectral wolves, a faint white light gradually rose from their bodies. The white light hovered in the air, seeming to be dissipating at any moment. This is the soul ring. They were killed by me. If my soul power had just reached the advanced condition, I could absorb their soul rings now to achieve advancement. The specific method is to use one's own soul power to attract the soul ring to oneself, then immediately begin meditation to absorb the energy of the soul ring. A faint purple light lit up from the teacher's hand, beckoning toward one of the soul rings produced by one of the spectral wolves, and the soul ring flew over. However, it didn't penetrate into the teacher's body. My current soul power is not enough to advance, so the soul ring cannot be absorbed by me. Within an hour, it will dissipate on its own. San, give me 2 white radishes. Oh! Tang San reached into his waist and took out 2 white radishes from the 24 bridges to the moonlit night, handing them to the teacher. The teacher threw them to Luo Sanpao, who eagerly swallowed the 2 white radishes with excited Roro noises. The characteristics of a mutant martial soul are beyond the understanding of ordinary martial soul theory. Sanpao can reduce the consumption of my soul power by eating food, and it only has 3 attack powers, each of which must be replenished immediately after use. Does Sanpao only eat white radishes? Tang San asked. The teacher gave him a bitter look, saying, as you've seen, Sanpao's attack method is farting. If you don't wear a mask, you probably couldn't stand the smell by now. Soul beasts are similarly unable to bear it, which is why those spectral wolves ran so fast. When it comes to inducing flatulence, few foods can compare to white radishes. With the replenishment of 2, roughly half an hour later, Sanpao's used attack will recover. Tang San couldn't help but want to laugh a little, but seeing the bitter expression in the teacher's eyes, he dared not laugh out loud. He could imagine how embarrassing it must be to have a martial soul that attacks by farting among soul masters. And the teacher's character was proud. How could he feel good about it? Roro, Roro, Roro. Suddenly, a hurried call rang out, and the bitterness in the teacher's eyes was immediately replaced by a cold light as he grabbed Tang San's hand. The surroundings suddenly became quiet, and a faint rustling sound entered Tang San's ears clearly. Vaguely, there seemed to be a hint of fishy smell in the air, not strong, even carrying a faint sweetness and the fragrance of tea. Tang San's nose twitched, and he blurted out subconsciously, poisonous. The teacher waved his right hand repeatedly. This time, he wrapped both of his own halos around Luo Sanpao's body, vigilantly looking in the direction where the rustling sound was coming from. Tonight is unexpectedly not peaceful. The rustling sound ceased, and Tang San activated his purple demon eyes to the limit, looking in that direction. Vaguely, he seemed to see a dark green, triangular snakehead rising among the bushes, with a pair of ruby-like eyes looking in their direction. Perhaps intimidated by the realgar powder, it didn't continue to approach. Teacher, over there. Tang San pointed in the direction where the snakehead was raised. At this point, the teacher didn't have time to wonder how Tang San could see what he couldn't. He quickly took out a match from his wrist soul tool and threw it in that direction. The match ignited as it met the wind, illuminating the area, and this time, the teacher also saw the presence of the snakehead. He sucked in a cold breath. It's a Mandara snake. How could such a fierce creature appear on the outskirts of the spirit-hunting forest? Hopefully, it's just a 10-year one. Hissing, as if angered by the match, the snakehead slowly raised, emitting hissing sounds toward Luo Sanpao. But the deterrent power of the realgar powder was still effective, and it ultimately didn't come closer. The teacher said in a deep voice, "The Mandara snake's toxicity is extremely potent, not only causing paralysis, but also having a strong destructive effect on the nervous system. It's one of the most terrifying existences among poisonous soul beasts. Its body is extremely tough, difficult to be harmed by ordinary knives and swords, and only its mouth and eyes are weak points. However, the Mandara snake has always been good at protecting these two positions. It's also incredibly fast. What's most frightening is its aggressiveness. It almost always attacks humans on sight. Realgar powder may not be able to suppress it for too long. It's waiting for an opportunity. Tang San didn't feel afraid because of the teacher's introduction. In his past life at the Shrek Academy, there were many types of snakes, although not this Mandara snake. However, Tang San didn't lack experience dealing with snakes. He could tell from the pointed head of this snake that it was highly poisonous, and its thick neck indicated that its weakness wasn't in the usual 7-inch spot. But he didn't know what kind of attack method this soul-powered snake would use. The teacher pulled Tang San behind him. "San, let me teach you a theory. More rings, more bones, one wave of skills. Fewer rings, fewer bones, then run away. Here, rings refer to soul rings and bones refer to soul bones. I'll explain about soul bones to you later. That means, when your soul rings and soul bones significantly outnumber the opponents, you must use your soul skills and soul power to launch a full-scale attack and completely defeat the enemy. And when your soul rings and soul bones are significantly fewer than the opponents, don't hesitate, run away immediately. Preserving life is the most important thing. Life is always more important than face. If this Mandara snake is a 10-year soul beast, we can still try, but if it's 100 years old, we should run away immediately." Farting like thunder, thundering heaven and earth, Luo Sanpao. After explaining these, the teacher immediately ordered Luo Sanpao to launch an attack. The yellow halo shone again, and Luo Sanpao leaped up in a frenzy of inhalation. Although it had eaten the white radishes, it hadn't fully recovered from the previous attack on the spectral wolves and now only had the strength for 2 attacks. Amidst thunderous roars, Luo Sanpao's super thunderous fart burst forth. Although the Mandara snake was fast, Luo Sanpao's attack was area-based, so it couldn't escape. A huge snake body was lifted from the ground and thrown far away. "Run!" The teacher only glanced at the Mandara snake that was thrown and had no other thoughts. The Mandara snake's cultivation years also depended on its body size. Before evolving into a 1,000-year soul beast, for each additional year of cultivation, its body length would increase by 1 centimeter. The length of the Mandara snake's body thrown away definitely exceeded 3 meters, even approaching 4 meters, which meant its cultivation was close to 400 years. The teacher didn't think that with his 29th rank as a Grand Soul Master, he could confront such a soul beast, especially considering his own weak martial soul. Croak! A shrill sound came, and as Tang San was pulled forward by the teacher, he looked back. The Mandara snake that had been thrown away was unharmed. As soon as its body landed, it immediately coiled and leaped, swiftly approaching their direction. Luo Sanpao ran at full speed, keeping pace with the teacher and Tang San, its big eyes now filled with panic. Farting like smoke, hypnotizing sleep, Luo Sanpao. The teacher used his ultimate move again, and Luo Sanpao, in midair, spun around, and with a puff, a bunch of yellow gas sprayed out from its chubby buttocks, spreading in the air. The teacher's 2 soul rings could attach 2 skills to Luo Sanpao, which were thunder and hypnosis. At this moment, they were fully utilized. Mandara snake quickly leaped through the yellow smoke, but it wasn't successfully hypnotized. Being a top-notch poison creature, its resistance to toxins far exceeded that of ordinary soul beasts, so its speed only slightly slowed down. Luo Sanpao had already used up all its pows, and its body had visibly shrunk a lot. There wasn't even time to give it radishes to replenish its energy. The 2 soul rings returned to the teacher, and his whole body emitted a bright soul power, speeding up to the limit. With one hand pulling Tang San, they swiftly moved forward, hoping to escape the Mandara snake's pursuit. The teacher was well aware of the Mandara snake's nature. This ferocious soul beast had a flaw, which was impatience. If it couldn't catch its prey for a while, it would easily give up. However, the Mandara snake they encountered today was unusually persistent. Whether it was because it was angered by Luo Sanpeo's fart and realgar powder, it relentlessly pursued the teacher and Tang San, its speed astonishingly fast. It was getting closer and closer. Sanpao, block it. At the teacher's command, Luo Sanpeo's chubby body rushed toward the Mandara snake, attempting to block its path with its body. However, not only was this Mandara snake extremely fast, but its reflexes were also exceptionally sharp. It evaded Luo Sanpeo's impact and bit down on its body. Loro! Luo Sanpao screamed miserably and fell to the ground. With a wave of the teacher's hands, Luo Sanpeo's body immediately turned into a purple light and reintegrated into his body. The teacher's heart was filled with despair at this moment, his life's past continuously echoing in his mind. He really wanted to ask the heavens, why was his life so unfortunate? Why? Why did this happen? And even implicated Tang San, this child. Just when the teacher was almost hopeless, even feeling the chill of the Mandara snake's venomous fangs, he suddenly noticed Tang San, whose hand he was holding, moving. When he turned to look, he saw Tang San's left hand touch the 24 bridges under the moon at his waist. Then, without looking back, he swung it behind him. A thick white radish flew out. With a pop, it happened to hit the Mandara snake's body, causing it, which was already within striking distance, to pause momentarily, creating some distance again. Listening to sounds and identifying positions were just the most basic abilities of the Tang sect. Tang San naturally had them. What happened next shocked the teacher. Tang San's left hand kept flicking past his waist. One white radish after another continuously shot out. Although the strength was not enough to harm the Mandara snake, it always managed to block its body just when it was about to catch up to them. Such precise technique. The teacher noticed that every time Tang San flicked out a white radish, his left hand's thumb was tucked in, palm facing downward, with the other 4 fingers extended forward and close together. The movements were simple and effective. Although there was some panic on Tang San's small face, he didn't seem afraid. In Tang San's previous life, anyone in the martial world could name this technique. It was the entry-level technique of the Tang sect's hidden weapons, the flicking hand arrow. It utilized the inertia of the arm's swinging motion to release hidden weapons. This technique was direct and effective. Although not particularly subtle, it was extremely effective at this moment. Although 20 caddies of white radishes were not a small amount, Tang San's flicking hand arrow was not slow in launching them. In a short while, the stock of 24 bridges under the moon was exhausted. It was now the critical moment of life and death. Tang San was very clear about the consequences of being entangled by such a large, seemingly powerful, fast, and venomous soul beast. It was no longer the time to hide his true strength. He suddenly let go of the teacher's hand, and the teacher had already instinctively rushed out more than 10 meters. All of this happened in the blink of an eye, and at this moment, it was too late to try to save Tang San. At this critical moment, Tang San's heart became extremely calm. He circulated his mysterious heaven skill throughout his body. This authentic high-level Taoist inner skill put him in a state of tranquility. Watching the Mandara snake's wide-open snake mouth, he wasn't panicking at all. With a flip of his right hand, the short sword the teacher had given him was already flipped into his palm. The Mandala snake, whether in speed or strength, is not something Tang San can currently contend with. Seeing the snake head pouncing, Tang San's feet swiftly shifted using Ghost Shadow perplexing track, and his body swayed slightly, already moving laterally 3 feet away. Tang San knew that he only had one chance. If he failed, then the Mandala snake would never fall for it again. At the critical moment, Tang San decisively channeled almost all of his Shantian power into his hands. Blue light flickered in his palms as he alternated between pulling and pushing with his left hand, once again changing his position under the effect of Ghost Shadow perplexing track. The mandala snake suddenly felt a suction force coming from its head side, causing its head to turn uncontrollably. At that moment, as its mouth was about to close, a blue gleam seemed to appear out of nowhere, quietly waiting there. In the instant the mandala snake's head turned, just before its mouth closed, there was a pew. The nearly 4-meter-long snake body stiffened for a moment, as the 2-foot-short sword had completely entered its mouth. The next moment, the mandala snake's body violently shook, causing sand and stones to fly on the ground. Wherever its hard body swept past, whether it was bushes or small trees, it was like they were being ravaged by a tornado, branches and leaves shattered and scattered. After thrusting out with all his strength, Tang San swiftly retreated using Ghost Shadow perplexing track, just dodging the sweep of the mandala snake's tail at the critical moment. Tang San, who understood the nature of snakes well, would never believe that the mandala snake would die immediately. San. The master's urgent call startled Tang San awake. He knew that everything he had just done was unavoidably presented before the master's eyes. His soul didn't belong to this world, and obviously, this was something that couldn't be known by anyone. What should he do? Kill the master to silence him? Tang San believed that with the attack power and uniqueness of his silent sleeve arrows, he had at least a 70% chance of doing so. But how could he do that? The master was his teacher. Even though they had only spent a few days together, Tang San had already sincerely respected him. There was no other way but to lie. Intentionally stumbling, Tang San fell to the ground. The master reached out and, being a 29th level Grand Soul Master after all, though his martial soul was lacking, his soul power was still there. He grabbed Tang San. "San, are you all right?" "Teacher, you scared me. Why didn't the snake chase after us?" The master stared at the mandala snake, wreaking havoc, blaming, "Why did you suddenly let go just now? Do you know how dangerous it was?" Actually, what the master saw was not as much as Tang San had imagined. After all, it was late at night, and the master didn't have the visual ability of Tang San's purple demon eyes. In the darkness, the master only vaguely saw Tang San's body falling back and the shimmering light on the blue short sword. As for the crisp sound of the sleeve arrows hitting the mandala snake, the master didn't notice at all. "I don't know what happened. My hands were sweaty, and it seemed to slip suddenly. Teacher, I accidentally swung the sword you gave me, and it seemed to hit the snake." Pulling up Tang San's hand, his palm was indeed sweaty. The master could guess that Tang San had hit the mandala snake and most likely hit it in a vital spot. Otherwise, how could such a fierce and vindictive soul beast suddenly not pursue? "Don't go over there. Let's wait and see." Snake-type soul beasts have extremely strong vitality and aren't that easy to kill. Tang San was panting heavily, not intentionally pretending. He was already a bit exhausted. Facing such a powerful soul beast as the 100-year mandala snake, he had already used all his strength in that moment. If the controlling crane catching dragon hadn't pulled the mandala snake's head over, then the outcome would have been completely different. After this thrilling experience, Tang San had silently decided that when he returned, he must find a way to arm himself as much as possible. Before Shantian Gong was completed, various types of concealed weapons were obviously the best choice, and they were also what Tang San was best at. The master and disciple stood there cautiously observing from a distance. The mandala snake, after its frenzied struggle, gradually calmed down. Its body kept twisting, causing the plants on the ground to break, revealing the soil underneath. The master gave Tang San a sword. Although it was only 1 chi 2, it was enough to pierce the mandala snake's brain. That was a fatal wound. Seeing the mandala snake's struggles become weaker and weaker, the master finally relaxed, and then his expression began to change from the previous panic to joy. Great, this is really great. Sand, your soul ring is settled. Teacher, what do you mean? You're not talking about this snake, are you? Tang San looked at the master in shock. The master nodded seriously. Yes, it's this snake. Before reaching 1,000 years of cultivation, the mandala snake grows 1 centimeter for each year it survives. This mandala snake is nearly 4 meters long, which means it has almost 400 years of cultivation. It's just close to the limit for a soul master to absorb its first soul ring. With your innate full soul power, absorbing its soul ring will be no problem. But, teacher, my martial soul is plants, and this mandala snake is a beast-type soul beast. Can I make it into a soul ring? Won't there be a conflict? Tang San asked in confusion. At this point, the master had already relaxed, his eyes filled with confidence. One of the 10 core competencies I proposed for the martial soul realm is the martial soul mimicry theory. A plant martial soul doesn't necessarily have to absorb the soul rings of plant soul beasts, and a beast martial soul doesn't necessarily cannot absorb plant soul rings. Under certain conditions, these two can mutually absorb each other. As I've mentioned before, one major advantage of blue silvergrass is its non-exclusivity. Because it's too weak, it doesn't reject any attributes attached to any soul ring, but passively integrates them. So, absorbing the soul ring of this mandala snake shouldn't be a problem. At the same time, do you remember what kind of soul ring we wanted to find? Tang San's eyes lit up. Additional toughness effect, preferably with toxicity. Yes, the mandala snake possesses both of these characteristics. The master looked deeply at his disciple and said, whether it's ordinary soul masters or those guys from the martial soul hall, they all scoff at my theory of the 10 core competencies. No one believes it. No soul master has ever been willing to absorb soul rings of different types to strengthen themselves. Sand, are you willing to try? Although I have absolute confidence in theory, it has never been tried. Practice is the only criterion for testing truth. The reason why my 10 core competencies are just theory and not truth is because no one is willing to put it into practice. In the master's eyes, Tang San saw fanaticism. Despite never being able to become a powerful soul master due to the variation in his martial soul, he remained so dedicated, pouring all his energy into the study of martial souls. For such a person, Tang San felt a deep respect from the bottom of his heart, respecting not only the master himself, but also his research achievements. Teacher, let me be the one to help you put it into practice. I believe in your research. The mandala snake's body had gradually stopped moving. With its vital points pierced by the blade, even if its vitality was strong, it couldn't escape death. Dim yellow light spots began to gather above the mandala snake's body. Unlike the 10-year netherworld white tiger soul ring Tang San had seen before, the yellow light halo produced by the mandala snake was very clear, and its brightness far surpassed that of the netherworld white tiger's halo. Even without direct contact, one could clearly feel the enormous energy contained within it. After hearing Tang San's words, the master looked pleased. San, let's begin. Tang San nodded, raising his right hand. Suppressing the feeling of weakness, he slowly gathered the remaining soul power in his palm. Accompanied by a faint blue halo, blue-silver grass grew from his palm, emitting a faint breath of life, gently swaying with the fluctuation of soul power. Come, my first soul ring. You will determine whether I can cultivate the Tang sect's supreme skill and whether I can fulfill the hopes of my teacher. Under the guidance of the faint blue light, the soul ring of the 100-year mandala snake slowly flew towards Tang San. The master stared at the approaching soul ring with determination. Sit cross-legged and focus on your martial soul. Following his instructions, Tang San sat cross-legged in place, concentrating his attention on his right hand's martial soul. At this moment, as the soul ring of the 100-year mandala snake approached, he felt an unprecedented, powerful pressure, causing his bones to emit a faint sound under this pressure. Soon, the yellow halo arrived above Tang San's head. Without giving him any chance to react, the yellow halo suddenly contracted, turning into a solid golden ring the size of a bracelet, directly falling onto the blue-silver grass martial soul in his right palm. Tang San felt as if his right hand had entered molten lava. A surge of scorching energy poured in, rushing into his body fiercely. In an instant, his whole body felt like it was burning. He couldn't help but shiver violently. No matter how the power of the soul ring impacts your body, remember to stay conscious. Only then can you better utilize the power of the soul ring in the future. This was the last sentence Tang San heard the master say. The next moment, he closed his eyes, his consciousness completely immersed in the scorching ocean. The internal force within his body seemed to be ignited by this sudden surge of power, instantly spreading to every part of his body. Tang San felt as if he could spew out fire just by opening his mouth. What a domineering power! The rushing power of the soul ring instantly baptized Tang San's body. However, what surprised Tang San was that despite the scorching energy, it didn't destroy the blue-silver grass martial soul. Suddenly, his consciousness brightened. Tang San seemed to see himself immersed in a sea of flames, and in the center of this sea of flames, a solitary blue-silver grass swayed gently, unable to be destroyed no matter how intense the flames were. Tang San felt great joy in his heart. This seemed to be the internal vision realm of internal force. In his previous life, because he was already too old when he practiced the mysterious heaven treasure record, he never experienced this realm. Unexpectedly, it appeared when he was absorbing his first soul ring. Under the baking of the flames, the blue-silver grass began to change. The originally slender grass leaves began to lengthen and widen. The faint blue color gradually became deeper, and the deep blue grass leaves spread out in the sea of flames, agile and wandering, like countless sand demon snakes crawling in the fire. The faint blue grass leaves began to turn deep blue, with some black patterns on them, exactly the same as the patterns on the mandala snake's body. Boom! All the heat rushed out, and Tang San felt as if the scorching breath had already melted his body.